Welcome to Advanced Data Analysis 1 with me, Erik Erhardt, Professor of Statistics at the University of New Mexico. In this video, I'll help get you started with the initial data subset and numerical summaries. So I'm going to take you through the entire process as you would do it. I'm going to go to the website and I'm going to start using this more often and jump down to the timetable. Okay, and we'll scroll down to Class 5. In the last video, we used this outline file and put our personal codebook into that outline file. So we have the variables that we're going to use for the analysis in there. Okay, so let's go to that file. We have it loaded in RStudio. Okay. And I'm going to knit this file and we'll look at the output for today's assignment. Alright, so let's open this in the browser. I open it in the browser typically because for demonstration purposes I can zoom in and out. For you, it might be good enough to look at it in this RStudio viewer. It's up to you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to Class 5. Okay. Each class will have its own area like this: Class 5, Class 6, Class 7, Class 8, and so on. Okay, so I'll click on Class 5, and the first thing that appears under Class 5 is the rubric. These are the goals for today's assignment. We're going to load the data and create a subset by selecting only the variables in your personal codebook. The next step is to confirm that the subset is correct. Dimension is not going to give you enough information. The dimension will tell you the rows and columns, the size of the data set. Structure is going to give you the information that you need. And in my own work, I use str. Basically, after any time I create a new object, I check the structure to assure that it's what I was expecting. So I'm going to you'll see that I emphasize that a lot. Next, we will rename our variables from these coded cryptic variable names in the data set to something more meaningfully descriptive. Okay, so this variable S3AQ3B1 is the smoking frequency. And then finally, we'll provide some numerical summaries of all the variables by just using the summary command. It's going to be one line of code. It will show us very quickly what information is in our data set. All right, so we'll approach each of these in turn. The first thing we need to do, so let's scroll down a little bit. You can see that I've got these comments. Scroll down to the sections labeled Class 05. I've got that for each of these items. And so this first one is the subset. And so that's this data subset. Let's scroll down and just very quickly see the rename and the numerical summaries sections if I've got them. So I've got data subset. Here's renaming variables. The next subsection you can see is coding missing values, but that's for Class 6. So we're going to skip over that. Let's make sure I didn't forget. So we've got renaming variables. That's the second one. It's actually the third one, but this one sort of goes along with the first one. And then the last one is some numerical summaries. So let me scroll down quite a bit. There's a bunch of data management issues to handle in part of this class. So, and we're going to defer some of that until later. But here, this last section is some numerical summaries to assess correctness. The reason I put that at the end is because in the next class and in future classes, we will be creating new variables. Oops, I pushed the page up. Creating new variables, coding missing values. We'll be doing a lot of additional data management tasks. And at the end, we're going to want to assess that the changes we've made have impacted the data the way we expect or intended them to. Okay, so those are the sections where we're going to put content. Let's start with the data subset. So here we are, data subset. First, the data is placed on the search path. Okay, so I'm doing a library tidyverse. Tidyverse is a set of packages that are going to assist us in doing effective data management, and not really analysis, but sort of setting up our data for analysis. It's a fantastic set of packages that I use all the time, and have used now for 5 or 6 years. It's the sort of the new syntax for data management within R. Lubridate is a way of making dates easy to use. And then I've got some comments here. Anything that begins with a pound sign is a comment and is not executed. So the 2 lines that we need are right here. We're going to load in the data set and then check the dimension of that data set to assure that we've got what we want. Okay? But first, to do that, we need to download the R data file from the website, put it into our ADA folder on our computer, and then we'll use that load statement. So let's go over to the website and find that data file. I believe I put it above the timetable. Here it is, the passion-driven statistics data, the NESARC data, and here is the R data file. In the last class we were looking at the codebook, and here I'm just going to right-click and download the R data file into my ADA folder. Let's see, something's a little strange with my window. Let me adjust this. There we go. Alright, so it's downloaded down here. And let's see. Here is my folder with the files in it. And here's the NESARC data. Let's make this a little wider. And it's 20 megabytes, almost 21 megs. All right. All right, now we're ready to load that file and look at the dimension. All right, so follow this step carefully. So I've back into RStudio. I'm looking at my outline. I'm starting something new. So a safe practice here is to save this file as, and I'm working on this on the same day, so I'm actually going to just put an A here to give a new version of this file. If I screw something up royally, I've got the previous file in my computer to work on. And I'm going to search. Command F or Control F will bring up a search window. You can also do edit find. Okay, Control F. And I'm going to search for class space 05. Okay, and that's where I'm going to be working. Now I'm going to hide the find window by clicking the X up here in the top right corner. All right, there's the rubric. And here is the data subset. All right, so I need to load the file, and then I'm going to look at the dimension. So I've removed the pound sign from the beginning of each of those lines. And I'll knit the file. It'll compile it. Part of that is it's going to do the lubridate package, read the file, and do the dimension. And rather than scroll down, this table of contents is clickable. And so I can just click on the data subset and see load. When I did the load of this object, there was when I loaded this file in, it loaded in one object called NESARC, all in caps. And the dimension is 43,000 rows and 3,008 columns. Excellent. I've confirmed that I read the data set in. Now, issues you might have is if you don't put everything in the same folder. Okay, so in this folder I've got my outline RMD file and I have the NESARC file, and they need to be in the same place for that load command to work. It is possible in R, of course, to put files in other locations and to refer to those locations, but let's keep things simple. All right. So I read this data set in. I'm on my way. Renaming variables. All right, so this is the next class 5 location. And what do I do? The answer will always be on the website. So go back to the website and we'll scroll down to, so here's the top of the timetable. If we scroll up a little bit, I've got some red text here that says use these files as a model for your assignments. And then there's this are the files. Well, you know, these are the files that Erik develops in the assignment videos. So these two links are the file that I'm working in right now. And after I'm done with this video, I'm going to upload those and you'll see those results here. So you can go right to this one and use these examples if you want. These other 3 files, you can ignore the .bib. That's for bibliography. That's not part of our course this year. But the RMD file and the HTML file show you how to do everything that we're going to do this semester. For simplicity, I'm going to open up the HTML because it's going to be easier to navigate. So I press Control click and it opened it in a new tab. I'll go over there and I'm going to scroll down to the section that pertains to us. For us, that is this data subset. And there's sort of a couple here, you know. So one thing about this file from previous semesters is we were using multiple data sets. We're using NESARC. We're using this one called AdHealth for adolescent health. And so there's lots of examples here that probably don't pertain to you. The main thing for you is to take the things that you need and ignore the rest. So I'm going to go to data subset. I'm going to jump down and here's the code that we just did. It didn't have the 4 cats, but it had tidyverse and lubridate, and we loaded our data set in. Okay, so far so good. Next, all right, the variables of interest are specified, and a subset of the data set, including only those variables, is created and stored in a data frame called NESARC_sub. The underscore sub means subset. Okay, so what's our subset? So here is a gray box that has code in it. And the main thing here is I've got our starting data set, NESARC in all caps. That's the object that we loaded. And then we've got this new symbol, which we'll call a pipe. And a pipe in computer programming is a way to take the output from the first process and send that output into the second process as input. Okay, so if I had the word cat and I had a function that reversed the letters, that output would be TAC. That's the reverse of cat. And then if I wanted to capitalize those letters, I could pipe the output of TAC, the cat backwards, into a new function called to uppercase, and then all those letters, the output of that would be uppercase, something like that. So you can send the output as input to the next thing. So here I'm starting with the data set. I'm sending it to this function called select. Select is a way of choosing which columns to keep. And here I've selected the columns that are in my code book. Now I am going to just copy this code just like this, bring it over to RStudio. Here it is. And I need to create a code chunk in order to put this code in here. You can see this code chunk up here starts with 3 ticks and then the R. in braces, and then it ends with 3 ticks, and it's all in gray. So I can type this down here, or I think you can go to code. Is there an insert chunk? Okay. And it will create that chunk for us. Whether it's lowercase r or capital R does not matter. All right, I've still got that code copied into my clipboard, so I'm going to paste it in. Control V or Command V will paste it. And there is my data subset. Now for you have to go through and delete all the stuff that doesn't pertain to you. Okay, so I guess that's going to be all this stuff in the middle. We want the ID number, sex, age. We want their height in feet and inches and their weight in pounds. That's those last 3. But these ones in the middle will be from your personal code book. So what you'll end up doing is you'll scroll up. I'm going to just page up for a moment. Okay, so here's my code book. And if I scroll down, I've got my original, recall the format here. If you followed the format of the key that I specified in the key, this here is the variable name, the original variable name in the data set. Okay, so that's going to be ID num, that's going to be sex, it's going to be age. Okay, those are sort of straightforward. But here, check 321. That is my cigarette smoking status. Okay, I'm going to rename that later on to smoking status, but check 321 is the one I want. So I would then copy this, okay, and then page down all the way down to this code chunk and paste that where this variable is. Okay. So in this video, I'm not going to go through and do that for each of my variables, but you can imagine I've gone and done that, and the highlighted rows are the ones that I've added in there. Okay? Great. When you're done, let's go back to the example and page down a little bit, and I've got these additional 2 commands. Check the size of the subset and check the structure of the subset. And we can include those right in there with the same code chunk if we want. I do recommend that you read pieces of text like this to give you some additional context. But here I'm going to copy the size of the subset to RStudio. After I've closed the parenthesis on that select statement. Oh, you know what? I didn't say everything here. So we started with NISARC, and then we selected the columns from the data set that we wanted, and then we did something with it. We assigned that with this left arrow. I may call this assign, or I may call this equals. You can actually use an equals sign instead if you want, but traditional R coding puts the left triangular brackets, which is the shift comma, and then a hyphen. And that is going to assign the result to this subset variable, nisarc underscore sub. And this is going to be our primary subset for the rest of our analysis. So here I'm looking at the dimension of nisarc.sub. It will tell us how many rows and columns. And we'll look at the structure of the subset as well. And you can see that I'm copying the comment that goes with the piece of code to make it a little easier to understand what that next line is doing. All right, so I've done a whole bunch of stuff now. Let's knit it and see if it's going to work. It opens our markdown environment. It starts reading executing each piece of code and converts that to an HTML file. Let's go look at this in the browser. And I'll click down to the data subset. Okay. Renaming variables, there's my piece of code. And after dimension, I've got 43,000 rows and only 13 columns. Those are the 13 here. Okay. Recall previously that we had for the dimension 3,000. So we've done ourselves a good deed by focusing our attention on the ones that we need. The structure of the data set tells us the same information but a little bit more. The 43,000 observations are the number of rows. The 13 variables are the number of columns. After each of the dollar signs is each of the variables that we kept in our subset, and also the data type. This first one is a factor variable, just all the labels of the IDs. Sex is a factor variable with two levels, 1s and 2s. Now we don't know right now what 1 and 2 mean. We can go look at our code book. But in the next class we will be naming these or labeling these levels, and those labels will then make the data more understandable. And here's a numeric variable, age. There's also a variable here with a bunch of NAs. NA means not available. So for the first 10 people in this data set, whatever this variable is, that value was not available. Maybe that means they weren't a smoker or something. All right, so we're on our way. Let's stop the video here and we'll come back and do renaming and a summary in the next video.